What's up, guys? We're about to dissect an appearance Cenk Uygur did at the American Identity Summit. This is an event in Chicago. It was sponsored by a new newspaper called the Chicago Thinker. Now, this is a student newspaper, of course, founded by conservative students / libertarian in October of 2020 as a response to COVID and the Black Lives Matter movement that followed up George Floyd. So, of course, Cenk is out there in another conservative space doing what he does, baiting and undermining the left. Now, I know some of you may be sick of all the coverage I do of TYT and these like pseudo-leftist figures, but I think this stuff is really important. At the end of the day, we know in these coming elections, MAGA are not going to be swayed. We're not pilfering any people that are transphobic and feisted about mass deportations. However, one of the primary fights we're going to face on the left is going up against people like Cenk Uygur, right-wing funded pseudo-leftists that are undermining the Democratic candidates and everybody on the left. And they really did a number in the presidential election, simply getting people so turned off by the system that they didn't even want to show up to vote. And they're going to do it again. So I think it's really important to hammer these guys' coverage and just stay alert as to what they're doing. That being said, why this particular appearance was so important was seeing how Cenk Uygur is now trying to throw a free speech thing into his anti-democratic party agenda. And of course, he is a massive hypocrite in the process. If you like the video, you like what we're doing, please drop a like, hit that sub button, and turn those noties on. And let's get into it. I feel like media has just gone the route of like the cheapest, worst reality TV possible.
Thank you. So I can't stand tribalism and radicalism, and I'm going to challenge all of you here today, both in the audience and in the panel, to try to put it aside. And if you think, oh yeah, I'm not tribal, well, let's find out in a minute.
Dude, the guy who won't talk to Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland, or Fran is saying he's not tribal. Okay, all right, let's hear him out.
So how can I lay claim to not being tribal myself? Well, you have to have certain principles, and you have to stick with those principles no matter who's in charge, the Democrat or Republican, your side or the other side. And you have to be wary of authoritarianism no matter where it comes from. Jonathan and I were just at the World Forum in Berlin, and lots of warnings from all over the world, Turkey, Russia, Hungary, on and on and on, about what authoritarian governments do. And the first two targets are always the courts and the media. So if you stop listening to the courts and you shut down speech against you, we're on a disastrous path if that happens. So now, have I been true to my principles? Well, so let's talk about due process for a second before we get to the main event, which is free speech tonight or today. So due process. When Barack Obama murdered an American citizen without due process, Anwar al-Awlaki, we didn't call it out later. We called it out then. We said this is nonsense. This is crazy talk. And Attorney General Eric Holder should be immediately fired for saying that due process is not judicial process.
See, what's crazy about this is, like, you notice how even with the shadow of authoritarianism that's happening right now, but he always starts with Obama. He's always got to begin with fucking Obama, right? Like, oh shit. And Obama, like, murdered somebody is where he's starting.
You can't murder an American citizen without going to the courts. And so they say, well, he was...
May I say something? He made that point in a talk here at the University of Chicago, interestingly enough.
Yeah, and he gave the speech at my graduation at Columbia, and I'm now embarrassed that happened. So that was... And then, by the way, if you don't know, then they murdered Awlaki's 16-year-old son in a separate bombing, which they claimed was an accident. And then they murdered his 8-year-old daughter in a separate incident, which they claimed was a further accident.
So in the middle of Trump's authoritarian regime, Cenk Uygur comes to this thing to talk about President Obama murdering people. All right, just pay attention. Yeah, no, it's like, I'm waiting for the through line here.
Okay, no asking of the courts for any of that. And if you're a Democrat who defends that, you don't actually believe in due process. And when Trump is trampling on due process now, you don't really have a leg to stand on, okay? But we do, at the Young Turks because we've been calling out both sides. I've been canceled by the left, the right, and mainstream media. There isn't anybody who hasn't canceled me because we are honest.
See, there we go. I mean, now I get why he's doing this. So this is, again, it's like him. I think his whole thing is he is still trying to establish himself as the only true voice, right? This is like, it's part of his PR campaign, sort of, is he thinks by establishing himself as the only true, honest voice, it's very Trumpian, really. He's trying to go into all these spaces being like, I'm the only guy here telling the truth. Let me prove it. I'm going to pull out something I said about Obama, and I'm going to say something about Trump, and then he'll leave out about how he can't even have a conversation or debate with his leftist people that used to be contributors on his network because he's so butthurt and so tribal and so self-protective and has such a fragile ego that everything he does is some sort of expression of how I'm the one true honest person. I'm the one person you can trust. And he's like fishing for, I guess, trying to reestablish TYT as some network that can be equally hateful of both parties. And you know, he wants to be the truth guy, right? But it's that sort of demagoguery of like we at the Young Turks are the only people telling the truth. But that's not accurate.
So now let's turn to Trump on due process. And what is he doing? So yesterday, Stephen Miller says, rid of habeas corpus. What do we need Western civilization for? Okay, let's just trash it. Due process. What do we need due process for? Let's just trash it. So this government is 100% against the Constitution, and I loathe their attacks on Western civilization. I love America. I love our Constitution. I love Western civilization, and I can't stand the attacks on it from either Obama, Biden, or Donald Trump. And if you think that Donald Trump isn't doing it, you're in la-la land. When you say we'd like to take away the writ of habeas corpus, you are definitely attacking the Constitution, and you are definitely attacking Western civilization.
See, it's kind of interesting now, right? Because I feel like with the way he presented the Donald Trump thing, I feel like I understand now why he opens up with the criticism of Obama. Because you know what it is, guys? Like, Cenk Uygur is no longer courting a left-wing base, okay? He still has left-wing people who listen to him, and he knows that there's left-wing TYT people. He knows they've lost a lot, but he knows that they have some. So he still does whatever, the same left-wing shtick he's always done, but when he's trying to get new viewers, he is always reaching into the right wing. Okay, so what happens is if he comes right out of the gate with Obama's a murderer, then literally the people that are going to be grasping on his words are all the right wing people will do that. And now he's following up saying, well, I'm warning you about Donald, right? But he never quite feels as harsh on the Donald as he is on the Barack, okay? But I feel like he is just actively courting the right wing. He's like, oh, we like those right wingers, right? Dude.
That is a cornerstone. And by the way, if you're a conservative and now you say, who cares about due process in the Constitution? You're not really a conservative. You're just a Trump fan. That's a different thing. Okay, so now let's talk about freedom of speech, because my freedom of speech has been, there's been efforts to curtail it from every corner, right? So did the Democrats and the left wing do cancel culture? Of course they did. Saying that they didn't is absurd.
See, the thing though is this is not fair, because everybody's engaged in the consequences called cancel culture. But if you really look at it, it started with the right wing guys. It started with the Dixie Chicks. It started with the shit that made Cenk Uygur leave the Republican Party. George Bush lied to start a fucking war, And the Dixie Chicks, a country band of Republican women, spoke up against George Bush, and they got nationwide canceled. But they were in the right, okay? And now we know that the cancel culture, the severe sort of like over nothing is a right-wing thing, okay? Yes, do Democrats cancel? Absolutely. If you're like Donald Trump inciting a fucking insurrection, using slurs, you know what I mean? Being openly racist, of course. Rating, yeah, we're going to cancel that shit, okay? But the Republicans, they literally own the canceling for no fucking reason. Like Bud Light, dude, they literally had a transgender influencer. What the fuck did that have to do with anything? They made a beer can with a face on it. Target put up their pride clothing like they always do. I mean, it's nonsensical shit. It's not even like somebody doing anything harmful.
It's absurd. You got canceled for every little thing. I got canceled for a blog I wrote in the 1990s.
Dude, yeah, I know. I think he does, Natalie, because really, did he get canceled from that blog? I mean, what happened with that blog? All right, Bernie pulled his endorsement, and nobody voted for him in his congressional shit. But dude, like that blog, we looked at that blog. That blog was nasty. It was shitty. And would he have gotten canceled for that if he hadn't gone on to continue shady behavior? Fucking celebrity camel toe, spouting the N-word, a history of misogyny and treatment of women that speak up for themselves at TYT. I mean, even if you want to look at Emma and Fran, could you say that Emma and Fran get ostracized because they're strong women? That the only woman that gets to ever speak up at TYT is Anna, right? Certainly the union busting contributed, but think about it. You think part of the reason why if one of his male co-hosts said he was a bitch, if he would probably still go have a beer with them. But when a woman host says you're a bitch, he's like, whoa, right? Whoa. And yeah, he's never actually been canceled. He calls like being called out for your behavior to him is like a canceling, right? He's soft as right?
I got canceled for a blog I wrote in the 1990s, okay, on a joke I did about myself. They're like, well, we don't like your jokes, so we are canceled, okay? Yeah, and they canceled everyone until they had no voters left and they lost the popular vote, right? So.
You see that? He's saying that we lost the popular vote by 1.4%. In the recent thing, we lost that because we canceled voters? What the fuck is this guy doing, bro? This guy is doing the right-wing fucking tug-a-lug, boss. Oh, my God. Before, I thought we lost because Kamala was a terrible candidate, right? She was, couldn't string a sentence together. Remember, Cenk? She had no platform. She had no policy. Nobody wanted to have a beer with her, right? She didn't have any good plans, except the price controls that now Trump's doing, right? But now it's like, we lost the popular vote because we're cancelers, because we canceled all our own voters. Dude, what kind of adventure is this guy on, bro?
So now if you call out the left on its hypocrisy, some folks on the left get supernova mad. You're not allowed to disagree with anything on the left.
You mean like the way you get mad when Emma and Fran call you out? Is that what you're talking about, Cenk? The way Fran says you're a bitch because you capitulate to the worst right-wing figures on social justice, and by believing that the right-wingers are populists that are going to defund the military, whole $1 billion budget, right? Or they're not going to go to war or whatever. But then you get criticized, you get called a name, and what happens? What happens, Cenky? Oh, what happens? Dude, he does. He needs to get unplugged, bro. Seriously. Like one of Elon's robots, dude. We just need to fucking jiggle that plug, dude. Give it. Bro, Dude, what are we talking about?
And we're for freedom of speech. Are you? Because you can't have it both ways. You can't say you're not allowed to disagree with me and I'm in favor of freedom of speech. Those are totally inconsistent.
Nah, you can apply freedom of speech where it applies to the government, okay? That you have freedom of speech. The government cannot punish you for your speech. The government can't. But the private company can, the restaurant manager can, the employer can, okay? Certainly the employer's allowed to police speech in the workplace to make a safe environment for everyone, okay? But the irony of this, I guess, that is really hard to fucking listen to is how he talks about how, like, you know, if you disagree with them, they're canceling you. But dude, this guy has canceled every leftist who has disagreed with him. He has ostracized them. He has publicly lied about them or denigrated them in the public sphere. He's tried to use his platform to like sway like negativity. He'll go on like, you know, how many shows did he go on to talk about like Fran? You know what I mean? Like, how often does he bring up how he just can't stand the radical left? Because why? Because they disagree with you, right? See, here's the thing, though, is if we were to honestly look at it, you ready, guys? I'm going to lay it out for you because I don't think it is even necessarily a polarizing or political thing. I'm going to say this, that I believe in general, both sides of the thing, whether it's Trump or the Democrats or even Cenk Uygur, if they believe the thing is dangerous and they believe that the person they're like exercising the limitation of speech, okay, if they believe they're in the right, they support the targeting of speech. Okay, like for example, what did Cenk Uygur do? He said, Francesca, you said some nasty things. You said some things that are inappropriate. You're bringing a speech energy to TYT that I am not okay with. So therefore, you're muted. You're done. Okay? Not just will I not talk to you, but you can no longer talk on the network. You've been silenced, right? Because whatever, her speech he felt was like detrimental, even though she was beloved. She was beloved on John's show. I don't think anybody ever said, man, TYT needs to get rid of Francesca. No fucking way, bro. I've hardly ever seen anyone even say a critical thing about that woman, right? People adore her. You know what I'm saying? Now, what's crazy about it is he felt he was justified in limiting her speech in his space, okay? He felt he was justified. He did. And then he even made a video. Let me tell you how justified I am in doing this, in cutting off her speech at the network. Okay, so like he himself has exercised limitations of speech. At the end, anybody, if they think if they're justified, this person needs to be restricted. If people feel justified, they have no problem restricting speech. Okay, it's when their speech gets restricted and they feel like it's not justified that we start getting into this issue. But free speech should be relatively simple to fucking look at, right? Because when you think about free speech, it's real simple. It's the government can't punish you for your speech, okay? And then in the rest of it, there's consequences, right? There's consequences. That doesn't mean there's not free speech. Like, you are free to say whatever you want in any context, but that doesn't mean you're going to be able to say things everywhere without any consequences. But the only real free speech should be the government. Like, the problem is, like, if Donald Trump commits an insurrection and the platform Twitter decides to delete his account, they're totally able to do that. Or if people are racist or homophobic or nasty on Twitter and Twitter decides to revoke them, or YouTube pulls their account, those entities, or you come into my restaurant and you're using slurs and I kick your ass out, we're allowed to do that. Now Donald Trump threatening to pull broadcast licenses, he's the government. The government cannot threaten your speech. The government cannot come and say to you, if you say slurs, I'm fucking sending you to El Salvador. No, you are not. Okay? Like, I don't know, man. He's like, I wonder, I saw somebody in there say, what fucking audience is this guy? Right? What fucking audience is this guy chasing? I'm really curious about what audience this person he's chasing. Like, yeah, no, I know. I think you're right. He's taking confused and angry leftists to the right. I think that's a really good assessment right there. He's taking angry and resentful leftists. He's pulling them toward the right. 100%. Okay? 100% he is. He absolutely is, because he's still kind of being on his left thing, but he is like, his smear is almost exclusively like more anti-democratic than anti-right wing.
I have certainly, we believe, and we can prove that it's the largest, but certainly one of the largest media networks online, let alone the whole country.
Dude, yeah, it's one of the largest and most dead media networks, right? He keeps like riding that. I've got one of the largest networks, but they have like the smallest reach. Like they have a tiny fucking reach for their size.
So you're going to shut down that voice? Yes. He does not give sanctioned speech. He shall not be allowed on our air. By the way, can you believe that Donald Trump is shutting down speech? So wait, CNN, MSNBC, you can't shut down speech and then complain about Donald Trump shutting down speech.
But again, CNN, MSNBC, they can shut down speech. They're companies. Okay? Donald Trump is the government. The government cannot shut down speech. Why is he taking such a weird... I mean, we know why. He's pulling right. He is. He's demonizing the fucking media. What is up, guys? Thank you so much for watching. You like the video, you want to support independent resistance media, you know what to do. Drop that sub, hit the like button, and please share it. And we do love our members, so if you want to become a member, it's another really great way to support. Thanks again for everything, guys. I'll see you next time. Let's go.